palsy, cruel and unkind, leaving broken dreams in its wake behind. Tremors and spasms, a constant dance, a cruel twist of fate, a twisted chance. Each step a challenge, each movement a fight, yet in their eyes a flicker of light. Their spirits soar despite heavy chains, their wills unbroken, their strength remains. In a world that seems to pass them by, they find beauty in the tears they cry. Their voices may falter, their words may stray, but their hearts beat true, come what may. So let us see beyond the twisted frame and embrace their courage all the same. For in their struggle, in their pain, lies a lesson, a truth to gain. That strength is found in darkest night, and hope still burns a flickering light. The poem bears a resemblance thematically and tonally with Poe's poetry. However, I feel it lacks an imaginative spark of a true Poe poem. Something within the human personality invites creative passion, whereas AI chatbots only imitate and take inputs. I also asked the poem generator to create a poem on gender fluidity in the style of H.P. Lovecraft. In cyclopean shadows fluidity lies, betwixt the realms of gender it flies, a shifting dance beyond mortal ken, twixt man and woman, betwixt gods and men. Eldritch forms neither here nor there, fickle as the wind, neither foul nor fair. Cosmic mysteries in their essence spun, gender-fluid beings beneath the sun. In the void between where madness dwells, gender bends and twists in eldritch spells. Unearthly beauty, unnerving grace, and betwixt spaces they find their place. Beware the gender fluid beyond mortal sight, and their shifting forms both day and night. For they are the chaos, the unknown tide, in their presence our fears abide. Note the use of betwixt gods and men in line 4. Does that reveal gender bias, the same bias we've held for centuries in our language structures? Thematically, the poem resonates with Lovecraft in terms of language. Betwixt, cyclopean, and eldritch are fine words for a horror poem. Does the poem bear any serious revelation about gender fluidity, or can only the human mind delve into the soul deep enough to pursue cosmic insights? I will leave you to decide. It seems to bear the same bias concerning gender norms that we inherited from evolution. It is a poem in the style of H.P. Lovecraft, a 20th century horror fiction writer with extreme right-leaning views. When asked to create a poem on surpassing gender norms in the style of C.A. Conrad, I got a poem of similar structure to the others. Here is the first stanza. In the realm of gender norms we break free, away from the chains of society's decree. Like a phoenix rising from the ash, we create new definitions that will last. Each example I present is fun and original, but it lacks the momentum of a truly creative piece. The structure and rhythm bear stark resemblances, and the Conrad piece has no resemblance to his syntax or creative flux. Creativity is a thing of flux. It must be. Like innovations in technology, it disrupts and disturbs the status quo. For AI to achieve the type of mind that creative humans have strikes me as impossible, because we do not understand the human mind, its structure, and its processes well enough to replicate it. Could we ever? That is another question. We once modified crops using fresh knowledge we accumulated from experience, and the findings in chemistry enable us to generate our own food using genetic modifications. We only recently discovered the structure of DNA, so this revolution in genetic modification is quite a stretch. Perhaps neurobiologists will have an idea of the human mind sooner than we think. There are various philosophies of mind that differ in perspective. There is functionalism and behavioralism, among many others. There is also integrated information theory, which asserts that consciousness is a kind of information that can be mathematically measured. This theory integrates two opposing schools of thought. According to Internet Encyclopedia Philosophy, integration is a grouping of elements within a system that have physical cause-effect power upon one another. This in turn implies that only reentrant architecture consisting of feedback loops, whether neural or computational, will realize consciousness. Such groupings make a difference to themselves, not just to outside observers, quote unquote. This suggests that there is a mental architecture to consciousness. Perhaps the problem is simpler than we imagine, as was the double helix, but once we unravel this mystery, we go into unknown territories that can help flesh out the post-human age. Will it mean the advent of new humans or simply a new understanding? Only time can tell. If we have the understandings and science at our disposal, anything could happen. According to MIT Technological Review, this theory implies that AI can never become conscious because it lacks the causal structure of consciousness. MIT Technological Review writes of the architecture necessary for consciousness: a variety of independent modules plus a global workspace that takes in information from those modules and selects some of it to broadcast across the entire system. Consciousness is emergent, in other words, from certain structures in the brain that communicate with one another and integrate information, but also filter this information. This describes human creativity in a nutshell. It is something that processes information and integrates it into fresh knowledge. The creative mind, or the mind best suited to develop novel ideas, is also a heavily informed mind. However, such a mind must also learn to be selective in how the information is chosen and used for the purpose of creativity. I don't think that AI could have this type of organic consciousness, and it does not seem likely it would develop it on its own. We would have to understand mental architecture well enough to reconstruct it. I do not think AI poses a threat to human creativity, but is a mere tool for humans to utilize for their own purposes. In the case of AI poetry, it seems to serve the purpose of the joy of creating without the effort. Abiding by the above description of consciousness, I quote Friedrich Nietzsche from Twilight of the Idols. One must not respond immediately to a stimulus. One must acquire a command of the obstructing and isolating instincts. This describes intuition in a nutshell. While intuition is an inherent instinct, it is also something that must be developed. It comes from an external stimulus, gut instincts, and processes from the emotions. Creative intuition, like all instinctual processes, requires time and effort to maintain and direct. Intuition is one of the creative writer's most potent tools. It helps craft independent thought. When I experience a writer's drought or writer's block, I absorb many ideas haphazardly. I toy with words and challenge their intended meanings. I like to, deconstruct the nature of language. It is the poetic equivalent of tearing paper into little pieces. Intuition is a map to the territory, but not the territory itself. The territory will exceed the map in complexity and fitness, but the map helps one develop meaning and purpose. This, after all, is what the arts do. One must allow time in life to take one's uttermost passions to challenge orthodoxy and norms that are arbitrarily enforced. Language is a flexible tool. To play with it in an ambiguous manner and string words together with relations that seem unparalleled is the writer's craft. To develop stories that lead readers to contemplate their conditions imposed on them by societal restraints. This is the art of love. Psychologist Erich Fromm writes of love. Love is a decision. It is a judgment. It is a promise. If love were only a feeling, there would be no basis for the promise to love each other forever. A feeling comes and it goes. How can I judge that it will stay forever when my act does not involve judgment and decision? Intuition is a kind of judgment, a reflexive judgment. As the aforementioned Nietzsche quotes assumes, judgment must be patient and wise. But what is wisdom? It is a kind of discernment, an independent discernment. With this, I ask that fellow writers extend their protocol from bland confessions to challenging language's limitations, the boundaries of normalcy and spiritual thought. Poetic wisdom accumulates throughout time, but is proven by the strokes of time what is wisdom and what isn't. Hence, great literature lasts. The test of time is not something that develops from a vacuum either. Cultural patterns shift collectively. We have choices, but it seems those choices are distant from individual will when it comes to the direction a society turns. Most of us assume a kind of powerlessness in the ruthless game of culture and public opinion. The arts allow democratic participation in culture. The artist is tasked with the burden of discernment. To be an artist is the greatest challenge in a world that attacks its own humanity. We are not born in a void and do not emerge from nothingness. Something external creates needs and desires for change and fresh directions. A human restlessness necessitates global revolutions. We all may participate by creating new works, thinking in a disciplined manner, and embracing a cosmopolitan humanism. The world is always made afresh, every single day. Before you step in the concrete, however, use your best judgment. What patterns will you leave? If it works for you, it will likely sustain your life. In the words of the American transcendentalist Henry David Thoreau, a man does best when he is most himself. One must delve into oneself to find the innermost truths. Those truths are often lit during intense study. As a light upon darkest waters, study helps evolve the mind. Through stories, one has access to wide human experience. Through poetry, one chooses spontaneity and the healing temperament. Poets are priests of culture. When you create your next masterpiece, think deeply and allow fresh intuitive insight into the process. Cultivate curiosity. Challenge your own instincts and experiences. Learn to think like your opponent in politics, in religion, and anything where disagreement is necessary. This furtive embrace of opposition will entice you to grow. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was a great session. And now we shall proceed with the question answer session. The audience is welcome to put forward their queries, if any, and you can post your messages in the chat box as well. If you have any questions, you can just ask now.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Will artificial intelligence be a rival to creativity?
Will artificial intelligence be able to what? Can you repeat that?
Will artificial intelligence be a rival to creativity?
Sorry, I had a hard time understanding the middle part of the phrase. Will it be available or liable to creativity?
So rival to creativity.
What are you asking? What harm could it do, or how it could enact to help enact creativity? I think that's a good question. Be a rival. Okay, I'm sorry. a little bit of noise in the background there. That's a good question. I don't know if it'll be a rival so much as I don't, like I said in the piece, it was like there's a consciousness, there's a spark of intuition and a spark of the human soul that I don't think AI could really compete with. It's the spirit, it's a passion, it's emotion, it's the flexibility, understanding and flexibility of things, and being able to adapt and so forth that we have. That I don't think it can be a rival so much, but it can definitely be something of a tool to utilize in creative pursuits. I really disagree with people using it as a spell checker and whatnot. I wish people would just learn to spell check on their own device. But that's a good question. I don't think it'll rival at all. I think it'll actually assist in its most pertinent ways.
Any other questions?
Mr. Pickering, what would you say is the major issue that budding poets usually usually face?
Major poets, what now? I'm sorry, I missed part of the question.
What would you say is a major issue faced by budding poets?
Modern poets?
It's language, right? So what would you say? What are your pointers to budding poets around the world?
Participation, I think. The greatest challenge, I think, to us right now as modern poets is there's so much going on, and especially ecology. I think that's a very important topic that's being addressed in a lot of anthologies. A lot of works are coming out, and so trying to put your thing in the hat, put your hat in the ring and be heard is a difficult process. And so trying to write something that is really pertinent and helps people understand more about themselves and the world around them is the task, I think, at hand for a modern poet.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Don't be shy. I'd love to hear the questions.
Hi, Dustin.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm very sleepy here at 6 a.m. So, I was just kind of thinking a little bit out of the box
Mm-hmm.
and wondering if artificial intelligence could have any impact on conflicts and international relations. And difficulties in communication, and whether it could have any impact on communicating with people of other cultures and this sort of thing.
Well, that's a good question. I know, for instance, that there's translators that work really well on Google, for instance. I think it can help bridge a lot of cultures. We're living in a world that's becoming increasingly globalist, and so that sort of thing is necessary to conflict resolution and approaches to understanding humanity that are more, I guess, creative and I think it could definitely. I don't know how it would do that necessarily, but I think it could also potentially be harmful and create divisiveness. That's my answer.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Everything's a mixed bag,
I have another question.
Okay.
I know that in these literary contests and everything,
Mm-hmm.
they say that not only literary contests, but in journals, when you submit, they now have in big print, no AI accepted.
Right.
And I guess they can tell, I'm assuming they can tell, like, the poems that you were reading were kind of obviously
Mm-hmm.
AI generated, and I'm wondering if they're all like that, if all AI generated poetry is like that, or if there are some exceptions.
That's a good question. Like I said, I don't think that it has right now anyway, there's obviously a sort of set of rules that it follows, syntactically and in terms of, language. I think that it's, I don't know how they would recognize it personally as an editor. If someone sent me an AI generated poem, the only thing I could say is either you worked really hard on this or it was generated by a bot. And I feel like there's a spiritlessness to a lot of the current AI generated poetry. So I don't really know how they recognize that.